Hi everyone, this is Dimitri, and with me we have Anand in his webcam, and I will present the opening slide of today, and wish you a very good afternoon and evening as well for those of you who are logging in. Now, welcome to this session, a special session about the Data DevOps Coach Program. We are running coach programs, this particular program around the world, in a virtual instructor-led fashion. And we received quite a lot of questions and interest. So we said, well, why don't we run a short webinar, give you some details about the importance of the role, why organizations are recruiting DevOps coaches, the structure of the program, and that's why we are here. And this is the agenda. So we're planning to have a presentation about 30 minutes, ins and outs. Please let us know what else you would like to cover and take this forward. Presenters of today, just to give a bit of background for those who are not familiar with us. So I'm the founding member of DASA, also managing director of the organization. But today we also have two of the authors of this DASA DevOps Coach program from Yayati. And they're not only the authors, but also at this moment, the two master instructors who are training our global instructor base around the world, and for them to pass it on to their learners and customers. But they're also the key instructors for the programs in India and Southeast Asia. So very pleasure, Anand and Akil, having you with me here today, and let's make this a very useful and interesting session together. So to start off with, and I looked a little bit about your profiles, and many of you are very familiar in the Agile domain, and some of you are also DevOps experts, so it's probably not that important for most of you, but it's good to reflect a little bit on what is DevOps. And Anand, can you give a bit of context and positioning here, please?
Fantastic. So very good evening to all of you. As Dimitri said, we don't need to necessarily explain what DevOps is to most of you. However, it might be worthwhile in the context of how DASA looks at it and how we have put together this program to just sort of, I think, create a little bit of a foundation. So what we are really talking about is DevOps is being something around the experience and the culture. Yes, it is about tools. Yes, it is about processes. Yes, it is about automation. And yet the journey is successful only when you are able to really look at the underlying culture that's conducive for collaboration, and you have active leadership sponsorship to take through the journey. So a lot of the focus that we would have as we sort of move forward, and what DASA has put together, which Dimitri will speak a little bit about in terms of its principles and the foundation blocks, are really anchored around the fact that the focus is really around experiences and culture, and through that improving really the quality of the product and the services and generating more value for the customers. Yeah, Dimitri?
Absolutely. Here we go. This is a nice one, Anand.
I'm sorry?
I say, here we go. You have your nice next slide. I said, it's a nice one, Anand. I'm always shocked when I look at this train wreck.
Yeah, it's kind of one of my, I wouldn't say favorite, but I think it's sort of a pet peeve, if you will. It's a journey. I think at the end of the day, DevOps is a journey. And I think you can go on the railroad, I think reasonably smoothly in quote unquote autopilot mode. Or if you don't have some of those underlying blocks, you could become a train wreck. So I think the intent is to sort of look at what some of the experiences is taught, some of the experts have spoken about what customers have tried, what succeeded, what's failed, and how do we avoid those failures. So that's really the context of this particular slide.
Absolutely. Anand?
Yep. So we want to quickly touch upon two of the research items. One is by McKinsey and one is by Forbes, where I think the importance of culture was really brought in. And the key message over here, you can take the 70% or you can take an 84%. Needless to say, that's a pretty high percentage of failure. And the reason I think there's such a high percentage of failure is because of the fact that there is no enabling culture that's in place in these organizations for these initiatives to be launched, to be sustained, and then to be really sort of thriving beyond its realization. So the culture becomes an integral element, and we will touch upon some of that as we move forward.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are familiar with DASA, I mean, you probably know that we're a global community focused around DevOps competence development. Started in 2016, and we recently celebrated our 4th anniversary. And we work with ambassadors, training partners, corporates, and other stakeholders in our ecosystem to, prepare, develop, and bring on the best possible training interventions which are out there in the market. Very pleased to be here also with Anand and Akhil. Both of them also carry an ambassador role. And we will also soon announce more information about our Enterprise Leadership Council, which basically elevates DevOps adoption and DevOps processes on a corporate level. And we're going to bring our global knowledge base also back to the regions, also back to the region that we are addressing today. And definitely stay posted with us, because there's a lot happening on information sharing and knowledge sharing. And basically that's what we're all about. I mean, you see it reflected on some of the pictures. You will also see it reflected in today's webinar. Knowledge sharing is key for us, and we have a very active community. And that community itself also provided the input into our team, into the DASA team, on what to develop. And developing in this case means is develop a syllabus for certification content. And it was end of 2018 that we had a user meeting in Europe where folks flew in from all over the world and basically recommended the team to focus on the DASA DevOps Coach program. That resulted in a syllabus, let's say a course outline, with all the definitions and the learning outcome of the program in early 2019. And as of last year, we saw courseware partners developing the content, first training partners adopting it, basically rolling out this program around the world. We got a little bit frustrated, like many of us, of course, by the impact of COVID-19. I mean, a lot of our training partners are actually ready to run the program, a 3-day classroom program, for their customers, for their learners, and then they had to basically cancel that program. So what the team did is we converted it into a virtual instructor-led program that has been run in many places around the world. We'll share more details today, and we're very excited also to have you here and share the details and the feedback of this program with you guys as well. First feedback is that virtual instructor-led is as good, or perhaps even better than the classroom alternative, which initially surprised us. But looking back at the details of that feedback is that it provides you more time to absorb the learners, put it into practice, and then 3 back-to-back classroom days, because that is quite intense. And breaking it up in more than 10 sessions is has proven to be a very effective learning method. But I'll also leave it up to you. And so when we go through the slides, please put your questions or in there, and I will gladly share them with the team. This is an example from the recent one which we concluded, and actually most of them already passed their exam of the program in the US. We also had experts attending from Mexico and Canada, and it was a real pleasure to be part of this program. They're all very happy and satisfied taking this forward. You have to understand that also in the program itself has been tested and piloted with a lot of experts, but also a lot of experts from India. And I can, certainly claim that it's been tested around the world. I think it's a cross-cultural approach as well, and we're very excited that wherever we host the program, we get extremely good feedback. So you find a couple of the experts from the companies on the left, and looking also forward to your input on what we share today. For those of you who are aware of DASA, you know our competence scheme, and this program is the newest addition to our leadership scheme. So you find the product owner, the DevOps leader, which is in the final scoping phase, and this is the DASA DevOps coach, which we have prioritized among all other products. Everything is linked to the DASA competence model. So also this program heavily builds on top of our team-based competence model, which has proven to be a very important instrument for individuals, but also for teams and organizations to build the right teams and to put the right folks together. As many of you know, there is a kind of maturity model behind this. So you can be level 1 at team building, you can be level 5 at business analysis, and DASA provides guidance if you roll it up on the team level, how strong your team is and where you can improve your team towards high performance. For those of you who are not familiar with that, please reach out to us and I'll share you a link and also a free assessment so you can also look for yourself, where you are on this DevOps fingerprint, and now you can also use it in your own organization or with your own teams. But today's course, which we're talking about, the coach program, builds on top of this competence model, which has been out there for some time. Anand, this beautiful Lamborghini.
So I think we had the train wreck earlier, and now we have a Lamborghini here. The intent of this picture is to really say that in some sense, DevOps is projected as a Lamborghini, and truly it is. I think it does enable acceleration of business value realization. However, going back to our earlier point, if you have a lot of sheep on the road, the Lamborghini is not going to be in a position to deliver the high performance that's expected of that. So I think it's extremely important to look at the ecosystem and ensure that I think the path is kind of cleared for it to really do what it's capable of doing. And that's exactly the same with DevOps as well. So it's obviously a metaphor that we have here.
Absolutely. So back on the first slide. Yeah, first slide as well. I mean, so if you look a little bit deeper about the research which is out there in the market, so they looked at what went well or some of the failures that they often saw at some of those digital transformations, but more importantly, they also looked at what is the common denominator for those projects that 60% who were successful, and what they found is it's about how people think, how people interact, how they collaborate at work. So it's not about the tools or the technology or the budget itself or some of the items which are mentioned on the left side of the slide, but it's in the end, it's about people, it's about behavior, it's about culture. And that exactly is where the DevOps coach comes in. And that's a very important starting point also into the why organizations are actually investing in it, because many of them they understand that it's about culture change, and not just a one-time superficial thing, but it's a extremely important and a very deep also management challenge. It's also about building a mindset for the future, as stated also in this slide. I mean, new technologies, they will come and go. You can bet that they will come. And that in itself is a fact. But what is important is how your team and yourself, how you're dealing with the change, how do you embrace it, and how do you basically convert it into an opportunity. And yeah, for many of us, I mean, adapt or die, moving to digital business models, digital services. If you don't move fast enough, I mean, competitors will be out there, and yeah, and most likely put you out of business as well. So while that is the, let's say, enterprise rationale for many of us here today as well, we're also looking at, yeah, but okay, but what does it mean for me? And why would I decide to take on this program? What's the value for me? We spoke with many of the candidates who passed did the course, and also some of them passed the exam. And for many of them, it's about an investment in their career. They see the DevOps trend evolving, becoming more and more important. Many of them are also familiar in the agile world, or even many are agile coaches who want to take the next level and basically broaden their scope. For many of them, it's also about purpose, about that they like to coach individuals, teams, and bring them to higher levels. And I mean, if you talk about DAS itself, we are part of a global community. Being connected with like-minded experts also counts for many of us. Having fun, develop oneself, and being credible and relevant. Those are also important ones. On the right side, there was a statement which was also intriguing, that that DevOps also changed the job. The way they interact with the teams, and that basically the person is also treated or perceived differently, having a more broader perspective on DevOps, a bit of the technology and the underlying models. So that's also an interesting thing, primarily for agile coaches as well, to consider, because we get a lot of these questions. I have a question here, so let's see. Is it like fit for purpose? Fit for purpose. I think if I talk about purpose, and Yamini, please step in as well. If I talk about purpose in this sense, I'm thinking about those experts who like to coach people and work with people and get a lot of energy in actually helping them bring them to the next level. So if that's an answer to your question, Yamini, then that's it. If not, please put it in the question box and we'll take it forward. So we have quite a few testimonials from, to be honest, and you can check and validate it yourself, from experts around the world. And those are experts who are real experts, and who are surprised with the content, the philosophy, and it really helped them adopt a new mindset, a new way of working, a new way of thinking. Many of them are consultants and have a consulting brain, but we also in this program help them to look at it from a different perspective and adopt a kind of coaching brain and a coaching practice. And for many of them, that has been eye-opening. I would recommend, there's another slide in this deck, and then we move forward. Also on the DASA DevOps website, there's a page about testimonials. If you're interested about what the experts say, from many different domains and many different countries and regions, have a look and see what they say and what they think. I have a question from Joe. How will this value add to freelancers within an organization? It helps, but how about an external consultant? Anand, would you like to take this
Sure,
question?
sure.
And I can repeat it if you want, but
No,
it's
I think I
about,
got the question. Yeah. So this is in terms of how does it help a freelance consultant?
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
in fact, we typically see about 2 or 3 profiles that are attracted towards this. One is, I think, the set of people who probably want to be trainers, and that's a smaller percentage of people, right, who want to really be in a position to administer or deliver this training. But the other two sets of people are the practitioners. One is who are part of service provider organizations and really helping their clients go through the DevOps journey. The second profile is people who are independent consultants or freelance consultants who join the client organization maybe on a contract basis or so as a DevOps coach. And it really gives you sort of the landscape and the perspective in terms of the scope of what the transformation is all about. It prepares you for the scenarios, what an end-to-end journey looks like, what are the skills required for your own self, and how do you sort of switch the different modes. So there is a point then, and we'll touch upon it, there are
Yeah.
different modes in which you need to operate to deal with different stakeholders at different points in time, because the DevOps coach role is driven more as a position of influence, especially to your point about being a freelance consultant who works with the leadership of an organization. So you can't really force them by authority, so you have to use your influence. So it's really about how do you understand the scope, and based on that, how do you influence and take the team and the stakeholders along. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you,
And
Anand.
Dimitri, if you want to add
Yes.
something, go ahead.
Yes. So let's move on. I do have another slide as well to give Joe an example put towards the end of the presentation about how organizations are recruiting also for external coaches and consultants to take on this external role. But Anand, it will probably fit well with this section which is popping up now about the scope and the purpose, because we will address it. We also received a question from Purav. Purav, I'll address that in your question in a bit because it will be addressed in a couple of slides. So Anand,
Yeah.
please, the DevOps coach.
Yeah. So DevOps, to start with, typically is looked at as a technology slash IT initiative, and there is a big part of that. It is about integrating the dev and the ops and now security as well. I think, look at the processes, you look at the tools, and really look at how much of automation can be done. So needless to say, the first point is it does support the IT teams. However, in fact, it goes beyond. In fact, it supports the whole organization, just like I think we do starting with Agile. When you look at Agile, you're actually bringing in the business folks into the mix as well. And this is really a journey even beyond that. So it is an expanded view where it starts supporting the rest of the organization as well. DASA has very clearly defined principles, about 6 DevOps principles. And that's what this whole thing is anchored around. And that creates a good fundamental grounding of how you make decisions and how you operate, so that at the end of the day, you can deliver to those outcomes. So it's really about how do you bring those DevOps principles to life. And as you do all of that, one of the key things that the coach enables is also in terms of building high performance teams and teams that are self-sufficient. The intent is the coach's role is not going to continue to be there forever. You want to really enable the teams in a manner that they're able to really take the journey forward. So it's really about improving their skills, improving their productivity, improving their self-reliance, and then enable the organization to move forward.
Absolutely.
Dimitri alluded to the fact that at the leadership level, there were 3 different sets of certification. There was a product owner, there was a DevOps leader, and DevOps coach. I think most of us, or most of you, I would presume, understand the product owner's role. However, there may be a little bit of a question in terms of what could be the differences between the DevOps, the role of a coach, and the role of a leader. This also comes from the fact that some of the coaches can actually be external consultants that are really contracted with the organization to play that role. Or you may be part of the service provider organization helping the client move through their DevOps journey. In both cases, you don't necessarily come in from a position of authority. However, a lot depends on how you really maneuver and navigate through the internal ecosystem to get those outcomes generated. So you're really an enabler, you're really a catalyst, versus a leader who's typically part of the internal system, a part of the organization itself, and interestingly enough, accountable for the outcomes vis-a-vis the rest of the world or the external world. So the DevOps coach, to a large extent, focuses on the internal elements enabling the organization to deliver the outcomes, while the leader is accountable to ensure that they're able to respond to the changing needs external to their ecosystem.
Absolutely. So Anand, I think it was Rajat who shared a very interesting example with me when I was in New Delhi attending the coach program. He said, "Well, have a look at your kids." And in my case, I mean, I have a daughter of 17 years old, and if I would like her to do A or B, I mean, I can tell her, you know, or recommend or demand her as her father to do A or B. But if one of her peers, you know, one of her friends would say, "Yo, why don't you do A or B?" It will carry a completely different weight, you know, and she will probably much easier accept it, you know, from her peers and to go A and B. And that's also perhaps one of the things. So the effectiveness of a coach when it comes to change and maneuvering in very, let's say, uncertain situations and adopting new ways of working in organizations who are in flux have proven to be extremely effective, perhaps even more effective than you can expect from a leader in these kinds of transformations. Leaders are required, but they also they have a different purpose as well in this whole transformation. Shall I move to the next slide, Anand?
Yep, please.
Excellent. Yes. Anand, can you take this slide? And also, there is a question from Purav, which is also, I think, related. And his question is also about the technical knowledge. I mean, how much hands-on technical knowledge is required to be a good DevOps coach? So maybe you can blend it in this slide.
Yeah, it's a very pertinent question, I would say. If you remember and recall the competency framework that Dimitri just sort of flashed in the initial stages, it really goes with 12 of them, right? The competency framework has got 12 components. 8 of them are considered to be knowledge areas. So they're around business analysis, there's an infrastructure element, there is optimization, there is automation. So those are all related, if I may say, to technical skills, right? And 4 of them are related to more of the softer aspect of it. So it has got courage and a couple of others, and I think it's kind of leaving my head right now. But the 4 skill areas are more softer. And as a coach, you need a combination of both. What we do look at is a coach having some level of specialization in 1 or 2 of the technical areas. Because if I don't understand the infrastructure, if I don't understand the complexity involved in operations, I don't understand how Dev and Ops works together today, and what are some of the checks and balances to be put in place, I have not looked at large scale integrations and implementations, then it becomes a little difficult for me to bring in that level of expertise and that level of conviction to that role. So there is a need for us to have some level of experience and expertise, which is typically based on your practical exposure. And the competency model also provides you some other elements, certification elements that provides you that as well. So to expand on that, the reason that's important is because the DevOps coach doesn't necessarily operate only as the coach all the time. And the way we have defined it, we speak about 4 different modes in which the coach operates. Typically, you know, when you are the expert, you come in as a consultant. So you wear the consulting hat and you exactly know what the problem is, and you kind of know how you need to approach the solution. There may be some nuances that you may need to apply, but because of your experience, you have a little bit of the guardrails within which you will navigate through the system. The second element is potentially facilitation, where you have teams, as an example, the dev team and the ops team that already exists in the organization, coming from different points of view. And as a DevOps coach, you have to really get them to integrate and collaborate, and having some shared purpose and also having some common ways of working. And as a facilitator, you enable them to see that common ground. And that's what the facilitation role really entails. And there could be conflicts as well. So there could be conflicts between dev and ops. As a facilitator, you sort of, I think, ensure that that is resolved. The mentoring is and coaching, they're big parts of the DevOps coach role. Again, as somebody that has gone through the experience of having been through the DevOps journey, or having been through parts of the journey, you have certain knowledge and skills that you're trying to impart to the team itself, because your objective is to make them self-sufficient and self-reliant. So initially you will handhold them, you will kind of impart learning to them, which is mentoring. And as they progress further, you then use coaching. And in coaching, you don't prescribe, you don't give them the solutions, but you show them the mirror and get them to reflect, get them to find the solution themselves. So you really operate in all the four modes. And there would be some skills that would be more important in one versus the other. And so your question about the technical skills do come into play, especially in the context of consulting and mentoring.
Excellent. So a question from Jayaram. It's about for someone who is not familiar or has not worked in the DevOps, let's say, implementation roles, how will the program help him or her? I mean, maybe the question is also about, do you need to have some experience in the DevOps domain to make this course worthwhile?
I think we will probably touch upon that, Dimitri, in where we have the modular structure. So if we can just hold on to that question for a minute, we'll kind of take you through how we are put the program together. So you should hopefully find an answer. And if you don't, let us know.
Absolutely. I think it's a good one, Anand. So let's have a closer look at the, so the timing is excellent. So maybe you can take all of us through the logic.
So we decided, we designed it really as 5 modules. And as Dimitri said, originally it was a in-person kind of a session. So the 5 modules were delivered over 3 days. We then repurposed it for virtual, and we've really made it 9 sessions, each of about 3.5 hours. And what we also do is, even though you have 5 modules, as a pre-work, even before we get into module 1, we send you some information, and we call it the DevOps awareness. So you get an opportunity to just go through it to make sure that you're comfortable with it. And the first, there is at least 1, or sometimes we also schedule 2 prep sessions depending on the profiles of the people, where we touch upon, or we get you to present what you have understood from that awareness piece, and then we sort of facilitate it in a manner such that you can internalize it. So you don't need to get into the depths of it, but you're given enough information as a preparatory piece to sort of get started with the journey. So that's point 1. And then if you look at the module 1 in itself, it really kind of gives you a view of how is the traditional model different than DevOps, and what are some of the reasons why we used to operate, and perhaps we still operate in certain areas in our waterfall, and there is some merit to it. And there are certain other areas which requires us to move to agile and further to DevOps as well. So what does it mean in terms of the transition? What does it mean in terms of complexities? So module 1 is really sort of exposing you to the breadth of it. So it's not to the depth. The depth is covered in some of the other certifications that Dimitri spoke about, but it provides you with enough breadth for you to comprehend what is involved in the DevOps journey. And similarly, when we get down to module 5, there we take you through, again, I think the steps in a DevOps journey itself, starting from why are you embarking on the journey? I think it's important to ask that question. What is the purpose? It's not just because it sounds cool, but there has to be a business imperative that requires you to move into DevOps. So starting from there, what are the other steps? There are about 7 steps that we take you through, which includes continuous improvement and sustainment as well. So those are the kind of things that should provide you enough material to make you comfortable.
Yeah. Yes, I agree, Anand. And for anyone who is not completely familiar with DevOps, I mean, there is a lot of pre-reading also going into the program, but at Module 5, you will also be exposed to a lot of the transformation details, and also it will be very interactive assignments as well that are part of this
And
program.
what we also do is there is an overarching case study that in fact we give you while you're in module 1, and we have multiple activities that I think enables you to apply it. So the case study is about an organization that is embarking on a DevOps journey with some stakeholders and their sort of roles and where they're coming from. And we sort of induce different complexities at different points in time. So through this journey, how do you apply those learnings? That's part of the journey as well.
Absolutely. Let's see. So the structure, so this is the virtual structure. I mean, we showed the 5 module structure. So there's typically a preparation session at some of the programs. 2 preparation sessions are planned, and at the end there's also a let's say an exam preparation session. And this is how it's structured in the virtual world. Anything to add there, Anand, or feedback about or rationale how you designed it, and then your feedback from the classes we run around the world?
So one thing we have done is, in every class that we've gone through, we've taken the feedback, and it's become part of, the ongoing continuous improvement. I think true to the DevOps sort of premise, it's important for us to be iterative as well. That is point 1. And point 2 is, because there is also an exam that's there at the end of it, we take you through a session. Again, it's after all the sessions are completed, in terms of what the questions look like, and give you some sort of a rationale in how you process it. Obviously, you're given options, so you're given multiple options. At the same time, it's not as if you can sort of eliminate all the options. There is one option which is slightly better than the second option, and that's how the questions are phrased. So we'll take you through some of that rationale as well.
Excellent. What I found striking, and I prepared this slide when I started talking about the program, is the number of concepts and tools that are being used and trained as well in this program. For some of them, I initially thought, well, yeah, what's the deal about communication or listening? When you go deeper and giving feedback, for instance, when you go deeper, you'll find for me at least, there was much more to learn and understand when you go into this program. Feedback I get is it's rich, relevant. Of course, each of us are also, taking their own learnings from the program, and the GROW model is typically mentioned as a very important and useful methodology to use in the different modes that we train the individuals on. And from that perspective, I think it's extremely complete and state of the art, and combining what is out there in the market in this program. I think
Dimitri, I'm just conscious of the time. I don't know how much more time we have. So yeah, go ahead, and then we can take any questions after this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have 5 minutes left. So this is, I think we have 3 slides to go. So very important thing, Anand mentioned it, is that it's very action oriented. So all the pictures you see are from live classes, by the way, but also in the virtual world with our breakout sessions, with questions, with teaching and training back and giving feedback on each other. I mean, it's a very lively and interactive program. Before we move and really close this session, I don't know if Anand, if you would like to address it, or perhaps Akil can step in. There is a very interesting and valuable assessment methodology, which is also part of this program, and has also been proven to be extremely valuable for the individuals, because they're also being trained to use it and apply it and help them structure this transformation project as well as a coach. Anand, Akhil, can you say a few words before we move to the
I
final
mean, just
slides?
quickly, in the interest of time, add that the competency framework that Dimitri showed initially was to look at the individuals and the teams in terms of what's your proficiency in the DevOps area. This assessment that's been shown here is really looking at it from the organization's point of view, right? Where is the organization in their maturity, in their drive towards becoming a true DevOps organization? And really, there are 4 focus areas: process, automation, culture, and organization. And there are a multitude of questions that are there. The intent is you don't need to take all the questions in all the areas. It's really, as a coach, you have a sense of which are the areas you want to focus on. Take those assessments, which gives you a sense of what are the current as-is state. And based on that, you really create what we call the transformation roadmap. So we will, in fact, cover that in module 5 in detail.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. So let me, there's another slide loading, but let me switch back to the, I don't know what it's, let's keep this slide open. So first of all, thanks to all of you joining the program. I also look at the attendance rate and how attentive our audience is, and most of you are still around here, so I'm very excited to see that. Those of you who are interested in the program, reach out to us if you have additional questions, and we can get back to you. Join us and become part of our global network of DevOps coaches. For now, I would like to open the floor for the last questions, because we will have 5 minutes left before the session ends. So please. I have a nice question. So from Sanumon, he didn't do any DevOps foundations or DevOps fundamentals trainings, and that's a question we regularly get. There is no prerequisite, and the idea behind it is because if you have not yet done your DASA DevOps fundamentals, we will give you the pre-reading. We also have a preparation session. We'll take you through the principles, we'll take you through the competence modeling, and you can board the program, and we'll get you up to speed in no time. So there's no prerequisite from that perspective. You can join the program. However, Salomon said, I am an ITIL 4 managing professional and ITIL expert. So that will certainly help. Of course, it's a slightly different thing which we're training here. It's also more about skills and how to actually coach. I mean, from a knowledge perspective, you're probably definitely on the right track, but it's also much about how you coach individuals and teams and what kind of instruments you will use there. Thanks for your questions, Salomon Valsalam. Any other questions, guys? Because we have to move towards a closure. Thank you. I'm getting some thank you. So let's close today's session. Akhil, you've been quiet, so thanks a lot for your support. Paulo has been on the back and supporting us technically. Anand, thanks a lot for presenting along. And special thanks to all of you who were with us, stayed with us. We're looking forward to see you on board of one of our classes, and I wish you all a very good evening and a very great day, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.